Love music. Live sport. Talking football with Bill Young and Ali Graham on Rock Sport Radio.
Online at rocksportradio.co.uk via your smartphone and your smart speaker using the TuneIn and the Radiogram apps. And, of course, you can watch the show as we stream live. That's on Facebook, on Twitter, on Periscope, and on YouTube. And if you want to watch on YouTube, it's Rock Sport Radio Official. Before we start, can I just say congratulations to our colleague Hugh Burns, who became a daddy again today. I don't know that much about it. I got a picture. I asked him if I could post it on social media. He hasn't responded yet. I'm assuming it's a little girl because the baby's got a wee pink hat on. So I'm assuming it's a girl. So that's kind of the information. But congratulations to him. And
good luck,
mother and
luck.
baby both well, according to all reports.
Mm-hmm. Well, as long as she doesn't do as much greeting as she used to do when he was a young boy, we'll be all right, Bill, you know.
I just hope he doesn't try and scrub those 3 6s off the baby's scalp.
Fools and horses.
Damien. Either
that, he'll need to stop wearing Old Spice, you know. One of the two. But there you go, well done, brilliant.
Anyway,
great.
Congratulations to him. It's great news. And
can't wait the night out.
That'll be interesting. That'll be very interesting. Good show tonight. It's taken up with Tom Miller of Rangers TV. He'll be in with us shortly, talking about Steven Gerrard's first season. And he'll kind of make comparisons as to where Rangers are this season as against last season, and various other bits and pieces. We'll ask him about the transfer whispers about Greg Stewart, about Jake Hastie being back on again, and John Souttar. Funnily enough, somebody actually on Twitter has said, can he wait for the Sun and Daily Record to slaughter Hearts over the summer because we don't accept 300,000 bid from Rangers for John Souttar? So I don't know where that figure's come from. It's certainly not one I've heard, but we'll see what happens anyway. So we'll talk about that as well as everything else. Rangers, in fact, for the first season under Steven Gerrard with Tom Miller shortly. Jim Goodwin has been touted, and I think you actually maybe touted him for Manager of the Year last week.
Absolutely.
A lot more people now jumped on that bandwagon, saying that Jim Goodwin has to be considered for Manager of the Year. Alloa lying 6th at the moment in the Championship. Don't forget, we're going back maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago, maybe even a wee bit closer than that.
Yeah, we spoke to Andy Graham about it, didn't we? And how they've went for defeats, turned them into wins, and the captain Andy Graham was on his last.
And now everybody's saying, of course, that not only should Jim Goodwin be Manager of the Year, but they're also saying there's no chance it'll be at Alloa next season. And starting to speculate as to where he might be. Yeah. And we were talking about it last night on the programme, and I get your views on it. Where would be a good fit for Jim Goodwin, do you think?
Some people would probably say, well, depending on what happens with St Mirren, but...
we had that discussion, and somebody was telling me, Jerry Collins last night was telling me that he had spoken to Gus at one of the games he'd been at. And Gus was waxing lyrical about Oran Kearney. And he very much got the impression the club were right behind the manager.
Yeah. Well, obviously people are just putting one and one together, Bill, because obviously that he's been there, hasn't he? And he's a history at St Mirren. So, for me, I think he could go into the bottom 6 of the Premier League. Like seeing Motherwell's, St Johnstone's. You couldn't tell me he wouldn't do a job at Dundee. So I would think
Dundee might be back in the Championship next season. Well,
you know, if whatever happens to Jim McIntyre, Dundee go to the Championship. Dundee are a massive club compared to Alloa, so I would still say that was a step up. He knows the division. He could probably take them up and then become an instant hero with them. And by the way, I'm only saying because Jim McIntyre might still be in a job, but
but you know, but this is the time of year when the speculation
starts. The same sort of age, the same sort of a manager, I would say. You know, so maybe Jim's a wee bit younger right enough, but. I think he could go into any of the teams, and because people don't realise how difficult it is, Bill, to be at a part-time club and try and manage. You're up against all the difficulties and players working.
Ali, not
only
that, let's put it into perspective. To be at a part-time club in what is probably the most competitive league in Scotland.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And so from that point of view, it makes it even more of a feat.
And when we were saying last week, 2 weeks ago, you know, teams at the bottom of the league, where are they going to find 2 wins together, never mind 1? He's found 4.
Yeah.
So it shows you about the type of guys that he's got in his squad. He's actually done very well, getting a lot of young forwards on loan that have helped him out. They've been sensational this season. And, of course, when you're trying to do things against the teams that you're playing against, all it takes is a couple of guys to make it through their work. Though it's just wee difficult things that can all add up. But he seems to have got it all together, a decent squad, and it's paid off. And by the way, let's be honest about it, the last 4 weeks have lifted them up a wee bit, but they're still there hanging about. So I'd really love to see them getting the points that they need to stay up, Bill, because I think I've seen them a few times this season and I've really enjoyed watching them. I think they've been fantastic.
The other thing it does show as well, as you say, they've put those 4 wins together. It shows you just how competitive that league is. Mm-hmm. That 4 wins can take you from bottom or second bottom up to 6th place in the championship.
Just off the playoffs.
Do you know what I'm saying though?
Absolutely.
It does highlight how competitive that league is, and nobody apart from maybe the top 2 teams have really been. I mean, Ross County have kind of been there from day one. They really slipped back and then they kind of re-established themselves. But everybody else has always been in that situation where they could be down, they could be up, they could be all over the place.
And a pretty strange situation as well, Bill, where you would find a team get into a league like that, up for it, the players he gets in, we're right up for this, and you get a good start now. Hamilton Accies have done it.
Yeah.
The Livingston, the start that they've had, obviously at the beginning, the first quarter or whatever, the first half of the seasons, helped them stay up, basically. But they've been kind of there, kind of competing. And at a time when they were winning games, they weren't going anywhere, Bill. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
That was ridiculous.
A bit like Thistle now.
Well, exactly. So, but they 4 wins now have really, really helped him climb above them and put them on a forward foot, if you like, compared to the other teams that are doing in the mire.
And I think everybody kind of was looking at the league for quite a while, thinking there was a certain inevitability about it from the start of the season. Yeah. I actually made the same comment and asked Jim that question and Mike Mulroney, and they both kind of poo-pooed it and said, no, we believe that we're good enough to make a fist of it and stay in the division. And they have, and I'm pleased that they have.
I really thought a few weeks ago against Falkirk, that game that we spoke about, the one I went to at Recreation Park where...
You mean the Indodrill Stadium?
The Indodrill Stadium, sorry. When Falkirk went ahead and Alloa battered them. Battered Falkirk. And Falkirk ran up the park and scored, and I thought, that's unbelievable. They just couldn't put the ball in the net, and their heads went down, and they get beat. And I thought, that's them. I think that's them. Incredible. Absolutely incredible how they've found that winning mentality. And that all comes through training as well, Bill, staying positive in training. Making sure that the training's always good tempo. Guys, we can get out of this mess that we're in. Just believe in it. One result, one win, and that's us. And we're away.
Yeah.
And it's Tom Miller's in and he's coming, and he's sitting down, and it's a goal!
How are you, Tommaso? Good to see you. Good to see you. Take a seat, get yourself settled, sir, and we'll be right
just come in time you come in there, Tom.
Well, we're just waxing lyrical about Jim Goodwin, actually, Tom.
Terrific job.
And saying what a great job he's done at Alloa Football Club this season. And I mean, how easy it is to kind of write teams who are the part-timers off based on recent history. Tom, can I just get you to pull that a wee bit closer, mate? That's great, that's ideal. And there was a time where you thought the part-time was going to kick in inevitably. But what a turnaround he's had.
I think if you take the whole Alloa package, the way they've gone about their job over recent years, the management appointments they've made have been quite terrific. He took a punt on Jim Goodwin. He could have jumped ship, gone to St Mirren. Stuck with it. He knew he had good players. It's a wee bit like last night you had Dick Campbell on, talking about if you good players, you get a fighting chance.
Yeah.
And he's got good journeyman players, but the achievement just to ensure status at that level, outstanding.
Tom, we were just saying as well, it's even more highlighted by the fact of how competitive the Championship is and has been over the last 5 or 6 seasons. But it does show you how close things are in that league when you get 4 wins on the bounce and you go from bottom or second bottom up to just off the playoffs.
Yeah, I think Morton probably epitomise that at the moment. They are the kind of draw specialists in the Championship, aren't they? And they're sitting there in no man's land. Put a couple of wins together, you could be going for a playoff. Conversely, you hit wee bad form of 2 or 3 defeats in the trot, you're really in the mire at the other end of the playoffs.
Yeah. I think
that's a great advert for the game.
I think that was a late goal that Inverness scored last night as well again, where Morton really had to win it, Tom, to get back on the track, get back on the winning rail, but they didn't.
And Falkirk, Bill, I mean, you've got a great affinity to Falkirk there. Ray McKinnon, great CV as a manager, good players, great facilities, wrong end of the table. I think they're open to criticism because of the effectively dismantling their youth setup, and they threw a huge amount of money at promotion, and it's failed. And I think heads are going to roll at Falkirk.
Of course, there was a lot of different things happened as well because, we had Alex Smith go.
Yep.
He went to Australia to be closer to his daughter. You had a new chief exec came in. You got rid of the youth setup. All of that happened all at once. And it's been a question of revolution rather than evolution. But a similar thing's happened at Thistle. Is it coincidental both of them are where they are?
I think as well, Bill, before Tom comes in there, I think that the big turning point for me at Falkirk was, Tom, when Paul Hartley, they got this guy, not a sporting director, because we had a couple of guys who were interested in players going there, and what happened was, you had to phone down to a guy in Sheffield who was doing he was getting the players together for Paul Hartley, where I thought, that's a kind of Rangers, Celtic, Hibs and Hearts thing. Not a guy down there, but a guy that take the pressure off the manager. Let's get the signing talks with this guy to see what kind of players we can get up. And guys were coming up Finland that just weren't interested in signing for Falkirk and weren't interested in playing for them. And I think that was a downfall for Falkirk.
And thereafter they've struggled to get into any form of even keel. Interestingly, Bill, you mentioned Partick Thistle. Had a quick look. Last season, Partick Thistle found himself in the playoffs. And again, it's been downhill from there for Thistle. But they had 33 points. They would be safe this season with 33 points at this stage of the campaign. When you look, Ross County were relegated on 29, Thistle 33 in the playoffs, Dundee at the moment 18, St Mirren 21, Hamilton 25. Thistle would have been safe a year ago.
Yeah.
Crazy, isn't it, when you think about it? Listen, some breaking news, boys, just to give you some that's just come in. Motherwell have signed Liam Polworth on a pre-contract from Inverness. Good signing.
His dad wasn't a bad player either. I'm sure you'd have played him.
Yeah, absolutely. Good signing.
Very good signing.
I've been impressed with Inverness this year again, Bill. I've said that to you all along.
Too many draws for me. We discussed that before, and there's another one last night, and they it was a smash and grab for them last night.
Yeah, but we thought that the semi-final would make or break their season, didn't we? If they get beat, then it might have affected their promotion running. So there you go. But I totally agree with you. But they lost their best player last season. They lost their best player to Ross County. So that was a big for me. That could have edged them a wee bit closer to promotion, because I do like watching them. I think they're a decent side. I think Jordan White's a big centre forward who we'll probably talk about later.
Livingston before.
Yeah. And he went to Stirling Albion, lost his way a bit. And I can see a bit of him and me when he was younger. He went down south.
Boy, he couldn't grow a beard either.
No, he couldn't. No, he was as good looking as me right enough. But I tell you what, he's starting to find his feet and he's starting to use them properly. And I'm not going to go down the old school route, Tom, but there's times when to use guys at that size and times when not to use them, So I think John's get the best out of that boy this season, and I hope he does well.
As a former striker himself, he knows which buttons to press.
Yeah.
But just before you leave the Championship with me, Bill, different class from Roy McGregor, Ross County. We talked about taking a punt on managers. He went with 2 young guys who knew the club inside out, didn't have the CVs of others who were pitching for the job, but my goodness, sticking with it, what a result.
But here's what a good chairman does, Tom, and I spoke to both of them, and they both said the same thing, and that is that they were asked if they wanted to take control and do the job. A lot of people would have been thrust into it. The chairman would have said, right, you're the caretaker, you're doing this, da-di-da-di-da. both Stuart and Stephen said that they were asked.
Yeah.
And it was a no-brainer for them.
They've
been at the club for 12 years, knew the club inside out, as you've just said. A lot of people kind of went, can this work? Because we'd seen it fail so many times before. But I think these guys have obviously made it work at a lower level within the club, so it was an easy transition for them. But going back to Roy McGregor again, that's a man that puts his money where his mouth is.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Can't follow him in that one. And I think, one season down, how often does that happen? Very rarely. Yeah. That the team who are relegated can bounce straight back. Hearts, Hibs, Dundee United.
Well, they're the talking point in this show most times, Tom, where we just think Dundee United are doomed, to be quite honest with you, and I just can't see them coming back at all. I don't know. I think it's now in their makeup, if you like, where they get to the playoff positions and they bottle it, and they had a good win against the other night, right enough, so, I mean...
in the Championship, the team who've got wind in their sails through winning, that winning habit, get into the playoffs, as we saw from Hamilton a couple of seasons ago, paid the dividend for them, and the team who are fighting for survival are out that winning mentality of getting results, and that's what makes the playoffs particularly interesting. However, Robbie Neilson, a good young manager. I think Hearts will probably rue the day they let him go, and I think if Craig Levein was looking for a step back upstairs, they could do a lot worse than go back for Robbie Neilson.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Let's move on. By the way, I've just got a thingy. Bill, is it Liam Motherwell have signed? What age is he? 24ish. Yes, he is, and it is him. Tom, let's talk about an interesting season for Rangers. Steven Gerrard, of course, coming in as his first managerial appointment. A lot of people made comment at the start saying Rangers were too big a club for him. I spoke to a very good friend who's a well-known journalist in Liverpool, and when I mooted that to him, he laughed and said, what a load of nonsense, purely because Steven Gerrard spent his life at one of the biggest clubs in the world, and he's got a big club mentality. He only knows how to deal in big club issues and big club things. So from that point of view, there is a degree of sense there, but it's still a big job to step into for your first job, making that step up. Looking back at the season, give us your appraisal of it.
Well, firstly, I think fair play to Steven Gerrard, putting his reputation on the line. You've identified all his strengths. A winner as a player throughout his career. Came to Rangers, a club bordering on turmoil. They took a punt on Pedro Caixinha. That experiment was certainly less than satisfactory from every perspective. So Steven Gerrard was the man that Dave King identified as having the soonest touch, almost. And the day he was actually unveiled, as they say, as the Rangers' next manager before he took the reins in June, in mid-May. He had presence, he had charisma, and he had this ability to bring people with him. But standards needed to be realigned at that football club, and he did it fairly quickly. If you're only taking on the park issues, you only have to roll back a year before his appointment, when Rangers were eliminated from the European tournament by Progress Niederkorn of Luxembourg, losing over there. And that basically was the beginning of the end for Pedro Caixinha and a number of players. So Steven Gerrard arrived and he got them into the playoffs, or the league status in the Europa Cup, which I think was way beyond anyone's expectations. But I think that came with a bit of baggage, or a bit of problematic symptoms to the training ground necessity. Steven Gerrard wanted the team to play in his own image. He wanted time to be spent on the training ground with the players. It didn't really happen. If you take it from the first European game of the 12th of July right up to the last outing, when they won comfortably 3-0 at Fir Park, it's a game every 4 days in that period. Every 4 days. So train, prepare, game, rest and recover, repeat. Train, prepare, game, rest and recover, repeat. And I don't think that he and his coaching staff, Michael Beale, Tom Culshaw, Gary McAllister, got time to get one-on-ones with players on the training ground the way they would have liked, to get their own philosophy across to them, how they wanted the game to be played. So they were pretty much operating off the cuff, almost in every game. And I think in recent weeks he's finally found a formation that can accommodate Kamara, who's been a terrific signing.
Yeah.
Stephen Davis, who had a severe lack of game time while down at Southampton, came back north, couldn't get into the side. Scott Arfield has eclipsed his best ever goal-scoring season, now with 11. So I think they've got a kind of formation that they're more comfortable with than they perhaps have been for a while. Have they made progress? Difficult to actually pinpoint that unless you take the wrappings off and start peeling away various elements of it. Let's take the Old Firm in the first instance. Well, 5 games, lost 4 and drew 1, scored 2 goals and shipped 14. That's last campaign. Mm-hmm. To date, they've lost 2, won 1, scored 1, but conceded only 3 goals in 3 games. Now, that's a fact. You can't argue that that's a fact. They rolled over and Celtic had the Indian sign over them, dramatically so. So only in Old Firm games, they've addressed the issues of shipping goals cheaply, albeit in the last outing, they gave the ball away twice in key areas and were immediately punished by the qualities of a £9 million striker like Odsonne Edouard. Mm-hmm. We know what he's all about. Take the end of last season against Hibs, the last game of the season, finished 5-5. Thrilling for fans. From a coach's perspective, Ali, you'd be tearing your hair out, am I right?
Absolutely. Absolutely, but I would have still wouldn't be doing the helicopter thing Neil Lennon done at the end of the game, right enough fire, Tom, but there you go. Absolutely,
but you look at the Rangers squad from that day. McGregor, an upgrade on Jack Anick, for sure. Bates may be playing in Hamburg, but I think Goldson looks a more solid first-pick defender. Russell Martin came from Norwich on a freebie in the January window and looked like a little boy lost. So Warler Katic for me would be an upgrade again on Russell Martin. Holt or Arfield, Goss Davis, it's a no-brainer. Defoe or Cummings. So from a player's perspective, from the squad perspective, I do think Rangers have moved on dramatically. Yet we haven't quite seen the best of them. Last season, Hamilton and St Johnstone didn't make the top 6, but both won at Ibrox in the league. Motherwell comfortably ended their League Cup hopes at Hampden. Comfortably. Rangers didn't lay a glove on them. So the Premiership, the last campaign, 121, scored 76, conceded 50 goals, Bill, and finished 3 points behind Aberdeen and 12 points off Celtic. This season, with 5 games to play, they have 66 points. They could possibly finish on 81. Yeah, they would need to win their 5 remaining matches, which would be a tall order. Celtic won the league last year on 82. So, have Rangers improved? Yeah. Have Celtic improved? Yeah, I do believe they have. Rangers are current top scorers in the top flight with 73 goals, but they've shipped 7 goals more than Celtic. So Celtic, despite a major change between the sticks, displacing Craig Gordon with Scott Bain at a crucial stage of the season, changing manager at a crucial stage of the season, criticism regularly for their centre-back partnerships.
Absolutely.
And, Jerry Collins would sit here and say they must have a better centre-half, yet somehow they have shipped 7 goals less than Rangers. But Rangers have shipped 26 less than last season. 50 they shipped in the league campaign, 24 just now with 5 games to play. So it would need a real seismic proportion swing for Rangers to show anything like the number of goals lost last season.
I think as well, Tom and Bill, I think the reason, and I was looking at the fixtures that you were talking about at the start of the season, where we were speaking about, last year where Hearts were flying. They were Saturday, every day else. Rangers, Celtic, Hibs and Aberdeen were all playing European ties, Tom. But the big thing for me when I was going through the games earlier on was the how much of an influence Alan McGregor's been back between the sticks, because there was 6 or 7 games clean sheets.
Yep.
And then I was just getting a young defence, 2 guys, as you say, they've not trained together, Bill, but have been thrown in games. But McGregor was sensational in the earlier European games. I can remember a couple of saves. Was it? I can't remember. Was it Scoopy away? Was it a couple of?
He saved again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just make himself
1-on-1s. Yeah.
Big.
Then he saved a penalty in the last minute as well against one of the teams. So I think I've got it down there. But not sensational. So just what you're saying there. He's been really part of the reason.
An
for
influential signing. He and Scott Arfield, I think, they knew what they were coming into when they were the first 2 signings of the summer. Whether they were actually identified by Steven Gerrard, I'm not quite convinced, but I think there's been a team effort in the recruitment department, and they knew they needed players in the dressing room that understood the demands of being a Ranger and the expectation. So Steven Gerrard had said 55 games in charge, Bill, 28 wins, 18 draws, 9 of which have come in the league, which reflects 28% of your league outings. You've had to share the spoils. And only 9 defeats in all competitions. So if you turn the spotlight on where it's gone offline, too many draws.
Yeah.
It begins and ends there. They've lost only 1 game by more than 1 goal, Ali. Were you aware of that?
No, I wasn't.
And that was to Aberdeen in the Cup replay, 2-0. Both defeats to Celtic were by a solitary goal. So a team to go through a season but not being turned over by anyone by more than 2 goals, I think that's quite remarkable. And it's something that's probably overlooked. Along the way, 33 players used in all tournaments, including cameos for Graham Dorrans, Sadiq, he came, he saw, he did, he-haw. Atakai got 30 seconds of against Motherwell and picked up an injury. Long-term injury to Jamie Murphy at Kilmarnock's awful surface back in August against 36 players deployed last season by Pedro Caixinha, Graham Murty and of course Jimmy Nicholl at the tail end of the season. So last season a total of 47 games against 60 that Rangers are on target for this time, and probably a yield of around £9 million from their European exertions. And the manager has earned the spurs and the acknowledgement of the board to go and spend that wisely, in my book, Ali.
Tom, you're round the club more than most, and you get to speak to the manager. I don't know, but I kind of get the feeling just from things that I hear that Steven Gerrard's a bit of a hybrid. Because he's not been out the game that long as a player, he understands the modern player. But because of the club that he's been at, with the history and the strength of characters of managers, I still feel there's a wee bit of the old style manager where he has a finger in most pies at the club and wants to know what's going on in other areas, because he knows that there is an impact on whatever through a club, a football club. Is that a fair representation, or am I way off the mark with that?
No, I think that's a phenomenal observation, Bill, on your part. I've never seen a more focused and in-the-zone manager on a match day. He, from the moment he arrives at the ground, and he's changed the whole build-up on a match day. On a home day at Ibrox, the players will arrive 10:30, park their cars. They're then taken by coach to the Hummel Training Centre. They lunch there, they go through their pre-match routine of some analysis, who's doing what, team talk. They come back to Ibrox ready for business. The bus takes them to the door, they're straight into the dressing room. There's no need for any extended chat with the people who hang around every football club, Ali, as you know. Absolutely. So these wee behind-the-scenes activities from Steven Gerrard will certainly pay dividends. Maybe not in the immediate term, but things that habits have to be improved. And one of the reasons for that is he's looking to move the current manager's office inside Ibrox. There are 2 managers' offices, one behind reception and one at the top of the marble staircase, where they used to say when the green light was on and you were invited to go and speak to somebody like Willie Waddle, you were either getting shown the door or being asked to sign an extended contract for the same kind of money. So that one still exists, but very rarely used. Down the stairs is a bit more public, and Steven Gerrard uses that on a match day. He wants it moved in beside the dressing room, so he builds that whole camaraderie from the coaching staff and players pre-match, so they see every move, they see if anyone perhaps isn't quite operating at 100%. I've never seen a more in-the-zone man. And interestingly, while maybe not just as thorough perhaps on non-football issues like Martin O'Neill was in his tenure at Celtic, who almost wanted to sit in on interviews for turnstile operators at one time. He took such an interest in everything about the club. These standards, with the aid of Mark Allen as Director of Football, Stuart Robertson as Managing Director, are all being addressed, and I've never seen a more polished and professional Rangers setup for many, many years. There are most definitely indicators that, going back to the days of Souness, when flip-flops were first introduced, I know that might sound daft, but small things that just make things better, a better environment for the players, better environment for fans to come and enjoy their match day experience, and more importantly, the players go into it with a mindset that they are expected to win.
Tom, sorry, Ali, fire away.
No, I was just going to say to Tom there, it's quite interesting that compared to when I was playing Tom Mayer, you done everything at the stadium, Bill. Now what Tom's saying is all the work's done, and it's probably stemmed from England where, let's be honest about it, Tom, far more money than us, and they've built the training centres before Lennoxton and the Hummel Centre, whatever. You know, I mean, I can remember Hibs and Hearts searching for somewhere to train, not that so long ago, by the way, but they didn't have anything. So what happens with that is, Bill, is when you go to the stadium now and you come off the coach, everything's done, the preparation's done, you're in there for your business, it's the game, nothing else, it's game time, in and out. You know, you don't need to hang about the place for 2 or 3 hours before kick-off. It's get the team in, let's go, get the 3 points, and then let's go out again. I think it's great, the way they takes the pressure off you at the park, and doing it in your training centre out the road, instead of being at Ibrox or Celtic Park. Fantastic.
I think it gives the coaches that opportunity to look into the eyes of the players who've been selected for the next 90 minutes, and if there's something not quite right, they identify it quickly and make necessary changes, if required. But as I say, the most in-the-zone manager I've seen. And often you see visiting teams arrive sloppily, hands stuffed in pockets, walking down the tunnel, taking pictures of Ibrox. You know, in the lower divisions, that's all you got. Visiting teams who were coming for a day out. And perhaps Alan McCoist, much as we all love Ali, he had a different demeanour in his management style as well. But I think we're seeing something different under Steven Gerrard.
Tom, is it fair to say that before Steven Gerrard's arrival, Mark Allen, to most fans, was a bit of an enigma in terms of they knew he was director of football but really didn't know or see or gauge the results. Obviously, from the first day that Steven Gerrard sat down at Ibrox when he was unveiled, he made reference to Mark Allen, the way that he had worked with him even before he got there, and the way they'd worked closely. And that relationship seems to have got stronger, seems to have got wider. And I think now, certainly from a personal point of view, I'm more cognizant of the value of Mark Allen to Rangers Football Club. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and I think Mark Allen is one of these guys who doesn't seek the limelight. I think he's happy getting on with diligently getting the job done behind the scenes. He's the man that made the approach for Steven Gerrard. Steven Gerrard was on the training ground with the Liverpool youngsters, and he got a text. Can we chat about the opportunity for you to manage Rangers? And Steven Gerrard said, immediately knew it was the right thing for him. He'd had a number of nibbles from other clubs about potential jobs, but when this one was there, he knew the state of the club, he knew it was a big job, and he knew it wouldn't be a quick fix, but he knew in Mark Allen he had someone that he could work with. Mark Allen inherited zero by way of a recruitment or scouting department, so he had that to put in place. He immediately turned to a Rangers legend in John Brown, who had done that work before in the days of Walter Smith. He's since got Ewan Chester involved. Ewan Chester is the guy who has been chief scout for Fulham, Brighton, Birmingham in recent seasons, was twice chief scout at Rangers many years ago, knows the game inside out, knows who the movers and shakers are when you're looking to either get loan players or sign players permanently. So Ewan's involved as well. Meanwhile, the squad was supplemented by a couple of Stephen's own contacts from south of the border. And, you know, they had about, 4 weeks to put a team together, effectively. 6 weeks maximum, perhaps, to put that team together. Although as soon as he was appointed, Stephen started his work. When I first met him, I said, introduced myself, and he said, I know you fine well, Tom, because I have Rangers TV and I watch every game at least once or twice. So he had started before he was actually on the payroll. His work was being done. And I think in Mark Allen, no one knew much about him. He came from Manchester City. He, as I say, doesn't seek the limelight. He had a big job to lay down solid foundations for Rangers to develop from. He's done that, and I can assure you, he has a fantastically strong working relationship with Steven Gerrard and the rest of the board.
Was that down to communication then? He just couldn't communicate before Steven Gerrard and got somebody in of his stature that he could get, you know, into the kind of, if you like, the head of the whole scouting thing and the manager at the top of it, and he could communicate with him better than he could with Pedro or whatever.
Well, they obviously, Ali, have to be in the same radar.
Absolutely.
They have to have the same vision for the club. They have to have the same structure and identity of where the type of player they want. And I can tell you that, you know, right through the season, potential signing targets, they've gone into the nth degree, including social media. And Mark Allen told me this himself, that if they're tracking a potential signing, they will follow his every move on social media. How does he live his life? How does he perform away from the football club? Is he the right type of character who can develop, blossom and deliver for this football club? And if there's any modicum of doubt, the answer's a no. So a lot of thorough work that's going on, rather than, previously, you can go back to the 60s. Big George McLean, Big Dandy, was signed on the strength of one performance against Rangers. Even in the days of Dick Advocat, who was let loose like a kid in a sweet shop, signed Paul Ritchie, the defender from Hearts. Never played him once, but he knew he could get him just to supplement the squad. Without that level of diligence being done, Rangers don't have the funding to make many mistakes in the transfer market. Hence, loan deals are essential. But when they do spend, they have to make sure they're signing someone with either a big sell-on potential, or indeed a player who is 100% committed to the cause and brings, I was going to say no baggage. That doesn't quite fit. When you
Tom, I think anybody with talent has baggage, and good managers manage that. Bad managers walk away from it and they lose out on it. I've always said that, and I believe that in every walk of life. Let me ask you this. Is the signing policy... Is there any indication it's going to change slightly? And the reason I ask that is, you've probably heard me say it on the programme, when you have loan signings and you want to create, and in the same way in radio you want to create a station sound, you want to create a style of play for a football club, you need to be able to work with people on an ongoing basis. Loans don't always allow you to do that. If you're going to buy them at the end of the loan, that's a different thing. But let me ask you, judged on the names that have been knocked about at the moment, judged on what you're hearing around the club, is there a wee bit of a change in attitude to more Bosmans of a reasonable quality, where you can get them in, you can pay them good money, so from that point of view you're getting a higher level and you've got them? Or are we still going to be seeing quite a lot of loanees coming into Rangers, do you think?
I think it's a balance, Bill. If you take Connor Goldson, he's now played one game more for Rangers in one season than he did in 3 at Brighton. So they're looking for players that have that potential X factor, and can Rangers get it out of them? James Tavernier, now everyone is very critical of his defensive deficiencies, but my goodness, 14 goals going forward. Rangers play Hearts at the weekend. The last time Hearts came to Ibrox, 14 days ago, Rangers beat them 3-0. James Tavernier assisted every one of the 3 goals. But prior to that, James Tavernier, who started his career at Newcastle, was bobbing about on loan at places like Rotherham, Carlisle, Gateshead prior to that.
He was a journeyman at 22.
Yeah, but what Rangers have given is an opportunity for somebody like James Tavernier to lay down some roots with his family and have a stable home life and environment, and that's now being reflected in the way he goes about his business.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to worry that he's on his bike again in another 6 months. He's got an extended contract, and Ali, I think that's huge that they've identified they won't all come off. But when they do come off like that, I think you've won a watch.
I think there has been a couple of people that have come in, Tom, where you kind of look at, he's kind of rushed in because of the situation he's been in, but he's not had time really to reflect on things and have a look at the players. For me, Tavernier, listen, he doesn't defend. He doesn't need to defend. He's not a defender.
But it's the modern way. Look at Trippier at Tottenham. Look at the boy Trent D'Arby at right back for Liverpool. Neither of them defend.
Wide right man, so he doesn't need to defend. That's when you have to get your centre backs better to cope with his 40s going up and down the line, or Candace covering them, because they had that quite a good relationship. Maybe not so good. It was good at the beginning of the season where the two of them covered each other. But for me, he's been great for Rangers. I mean, is he going to add money to the bank for them if he signs for somebody? Of course he is. So he's a player that they've got in, Bill, where they've taken a chance, and he's scored the goals, the assists, and he's going to earn Rangers money. He's going to earn Rangers money, whether he goes or not. But, you know yourself, if somebody comes in and offers money for James Tavernier, then he's doing it off. It's as simple as that. But I think there's been other signings as well, Tom, where Koulibaly, Grezda, whatever. You see, like, the loan signings you're talking about, are you alluding to the Greg Stewart thing or whatever? Are you talking about that?
Well, I'm talking generally. I'm not talking specifically.
I would just say at this stage, Rangers have made no comment about Hasty, about Suter, nor Greg Stewart.
Which, Tom, can I just stop you there? Because that in itself is a sea change.
Yes.
Because, there were more leaks at Ibrox for God knows how long, than you can imagine. But now it's difficult to try and get anything concrete out of the club unless it comes from the club under an official statement.
It would be morally wrong were Hastie and Souttar in particular not on the radar of both Rangers and Celtic, and even perhaps Aberdeen if they had the funding. So you can understand why there's linkage there. Papers are a dying breed. They've got to sell copy where they can. And I look at some of the bylines and I look who's written it, and I think that is another flyer. And there are plenty of them. However, if Rangers were to complete the signing, particularly if Souttar at 22, I think he's one for the future. He's Scottish. He has a big presence. Is he a step up on what we've got? Well, Macaulay will go. Rangers, Gareth Macaulay will leave the club of that. I've absolutely no doubt. I think Ross McCrory is seen as a holding midfield player. I think his days as a centre-half may come much later in his career. But I think right now they see that he's learned a lot. Koulibaly, you touched on loan as well from French football. I'm sure he'll leave Glasgow at the end of the season. He'll have enjoyed his opportunities. But I think Ross McCrory will have learned watching someone of a similar game plan to him and learn accordingly.
Yeah, that was my kind of point, Tom. You kind of hang me there because the Scottish boys, because I do believe the old firm should always have Scottish boys in the periphery, if not playing in the periphery, because they know what it's all about. Well, Grezda's no done it for me. Koulibaly, he's been in the team, good 1 week, 3 weeks no. I just think, like Sir Stuart, going to places like Easter Road, and I'm just mentioning him.
My problem at the minute with Stuart is it's very difficult.
To Aberdeen, Bill.
It's very difficult to assess the kind of season that Stuart's had.
Yeah. But when he's at Kilmarnock there,
mainly because of the way that Aberdeen have been playing.
Well, let's take his Kilmarnock for him. Let's take his Kilmarnock for him.
Excellent. Where Kilmarnock played football. So my argument, Rangers would do.
My argument to that would be when you go to the places like Easter Road, McDermott Park. These guys, Jones, Stuart, the Scottish boys, playing in that, they're knowing what Rangers is all about. The same as Celtic when they play the boys. Instead of getting the foreigners in there, I think they know more about it and you can get more out of them than what some of the foreigners do, Tom. So, I think, whether they're going to play every week or not, if they're pool players, I still think Scottish players play a big part in both sides of the old firm, absolutely.
Yes, and I think Rangers need to extend the pool of players because of the expectation again that 60 games in a season. The last time Rangers faced anything like that was 2008 in the UEFA final season when I think they played 67 or 68 games. So you do need a big squad at your disposal just now, and these players we mentioned, would they fit the bill? Would they be first picks? No guarantees, but they would also be playing with better players, so you would expect to get more consistency from them. But I can tell you, having had time in the company of both Mark Allen and Steven Gerrard together in recent weeks, their priority is a number 10. They want someone with that sprinkling of gold dust that will unpick the stubborn locks when you're away from home at places like Easter Road and McDermott Park and even Fir Park. You remember earlier this season Rangers were cruising and then shipped 2 goals in the last 3 minutes to share the spoils. Again, back to my point, the killing fields for Rangers have been too many draws. So they want first and foremost that sprinkling of gold dust, a number 10, a genuine number 10 that will unpick defences and a good solid centre back. And I think if they get those two in the summer, that would be a huge step in the right direction.
So let me ask you, sorry Ali, just before you come in, let me ask you, Tom, if you're looking for that sprinkling of gold dust as a number 10, is Greg Stewart the man for Rangers?
No.
Not for that role.
Right.
But I think he's more than capable in certain fixtures. He's got that rarity of playing all left foot while playing on the right-hand side. And I think Derek McInnes was confused how to get the best out of 3 players who are very similar, be it Niall McGinn, Gary Mackay-Steven and Greg Stewart. And you wonder if part of the reasoning for bringing him back to Aberdeen was to try and dislodge the success that he was enjoying at Kilmarnock under Steve Clarke. And when you look at the league placings at the moment, it could come down to a few quid between Aberdeen finishing 3rd, 4th, or even potentially 5th, and Kilmarnock enjoying the best part of $250,000 by way of a bounty from the SPFL for finishing above them.
Let me ask you about Souttar then, because you said a centre-back's another one. Would Souttar be the requirement that they'd be looking for at centre-back then? Would you be happy with that, if it happened?
Would I be happy? Well, yes, I'd be happy. I'm not going to say he's a first pick. He's still raw to a degree, but he's got a big presence, 6'4", I believe. His brother is playing south of the border. And at 22, he's played more than 200 first-team games of football. Conversely, Rangers signed Niko Katic, who they believe still has a big future. But the season before, he'd only played 26 games for Slaven in his native Croatia. So when you analyse the amount of game time either of them have had, both at 22, both are probably considered for the future. I think ideally Rangers would want someone that can play shoulder to shoulder with Connor Goldson and just keep that back door closed. Meanwhile, Katic and Suter could well be groomed to be the future.
Does the search then for the sprinkling of gold dust and the left-sided centre-back that you're talking about, does that come down to the scouting network? Does it come down to trying to unearth some young person to come in, or how much money do you think they would need? Because you know what it's like, as soon as Rangers or Celtic come calling, Tom, puts another few million quid on the, you can look at Kent, who I think could play that role. For me, I think he's good in there. I don't think centre-back's not to go and pick him up. But how much are Liverpool going to part with?
Well, he just signed an extended contract to Liverpool before coming north at the start of the season on a one-year loan. Would he want to go back to Liverpool, perhaps not get game time? The big question might be, will Liverpool want him to gain further experience? We've talked about players that find the right environment to thrive in. Ryan Kent was in Germany with Freiburg, didn't really deliver. With Bristol, and also I think he had another spell with Barnsley, I think it was, and got mixed reviews along the way. And this season he stepped up to the plate. He's delivered some goals. He's got a trick or two, and again he's a young man who's got time in his side. What is his best position? Potentially Ali's identified it, not just as a wide player who play in the periphery of the game very often. Give him more responsibility, give him the opportunity to be the playmaker. There's shades of Barry Mackay in there. Barry Mackay at one time was considered to be a number 10, not a wide player, drifted in and out of games too often. And I think Ryan Kent could do a lot worse than come back to Rangers for another season to continue to develop on behalf of Liverpool Football Club. I think they know, with the coaching staff that's at Ibrox now, with Steven Gerrard, Tom Coulshaw, a former Liverpool coach, Michael Beale, former Liverpool coach, Gary McAllister, former Liverpool assistant manager, they know the ways of the Anfield, the old boot room expectation. And I think Rangers and Ryan Kent, I think he's towards the top of the list of a name they want on paper for the campaign ahead.
Tom, let me move on to a statement that Dave King made earlier in the week, obviously, and obviously it was met with differing degrees of credibility. When he said that Rangers weren't that far off being the dominant force in Scottish football again. Obviously, it's one of those things where the club have always got to be positive. They've got to put out positive messages for the fans. They've got to keep everybody at the club positive as well. Was it one of those things that was said as a loaded question from the way we ask them sometimes, in as much as, Mr. King, do you think Rangers are getting closer to being the dominant force in football again? Yes, I do. That kind of thing. Or do you think it was just, if you like, a rallying call from Dave King?
Well, firstly, it's not a case of giving the troops what they want to hear to buy season tickets. Rangers have a waiting list of 13,000 for season tickets. So take that out of the equation, and those that suggest other than that are well off the mark. The dominant force in Scottish football today is undoubtedly Celtic. They're heading for their treble. But Rangers have plans to put a spoke in that wheel. Now, while he said the dominant force in Scottish football, I don't think he put a timescale on it. You look through the rest of the leagues. Kilmarnock in third place today. Could they be the dominant force? My goodness, they're kidding themselves on, not even giving Rangers tickets in the numbers they want for the last game of the season. If you want to come back on that a bit later, because it's just an absurdity. Last season Kilmarnock's average attendance was 5,390. If I take their last 6 home games, excluding the Old Firm, it's 5,502. Steve Clarke and his coaching staff deserve better than that. An uplift of 100 punters on home games ain't good enough for a team that have delivered the success that they're about to do this season.
I'll wait for Kathy Jamieson's response when she's on tomorrow.
She's more than
night.
welcome. But facts don't lie, and I only deal in facts, Bill.
Absolutely.
You know, I'm not sitting here like a blogger.
No.
Living, you know,
Tom,
exactly. I know,
Tom,
but you can give her my best regards.
It's a conversation, and that's you know, I want to hear your views on it, and I'm sure she'll give us her views.
And I'll happily back up my comment with hard facts if that's what she fancies at a later date. But they'll also sell less pies because I won't be there either.
Just a quick one on that one, guys. Do you think that this has got any reason to do with the kind of, you know, not the trouble, but the kind of spite, the kind of last time the boy they was stoning, and I'm just saying, do you think, you know, the blaming the supporters, the things that do you think that's getting to do with that, or is that just?
Well, it's their 150th anniversary,
right.
And firstly, we should acknowledge that that's quite a landmark for Kilmarnock Football Club, and I do hope they have a hugely successful year to acknowledge 150 years in the game. I can understand they want an end-of-season party all to themselves, but they've already banked a very sizable amount of cash from 2 home games against Rangers in the Cup.
Yeah.
I don't recall them coming out the woodwork then and saying, no, don't send your Rangers fans for these occasions, fill your boots. So they've already banked the cash. So, and I think they're looking at the end of season position that if they finish above Aberdeen, there's another £250,000 of a difference in the payouts depending on where you finish. And I think that's the eye in the prize for Billy Bowie and his board of directors there. But back to Dave King. I remember many years ago, Martin Bain, the former Rangers chief executive, saying to me, if there was one person he would not play cards with, and I immediately expected he would have said David Murray, he said it was Dave King. And I'm talking 6-7 years ago. He says Dave King is one man who you could not read where he's going to go or what he's going to do next. So the dominant force in Scottish football dismissed the rest of the SPL. There is only one team who can offer any resistance to the dominance that Celtic have today, and that is Rangers. He didn't put a timescale on it, but with the right backing, he believes that Rangers will come back. And we're only looking for history to repeat itself. And I, for one, am confident that the current board at Rangers will pull out the stops to try and deliver in line with the statement made by the chairman.
Do you think there's also disappointment for Dave King this season that they didn't maybe do as well in the cup competitions, Tom? You know, winning a trophy would have been probably even more, you know, for what he's put in and getting Steven Gerrard on board. Winning a trophy for the Rangers fans would probably been a step even closer in the right direction.
Fans crave silverware.
Yeah.
And I think the lift that would go with that would again, you know, be fantastic for the players. Bill, you identified it, I think, about 4 months ago. I recall listening one evening and you questioned the winning mentality, and Celtic have that winning mentality, and I'll come back on that just in a moment when I look at, you know, homes and aways for both clubs. But I think that's something that Rangers need to address, and that is if you win one pot, for want of a better term, success breeds success, and Rangers need to get that first win, get the old monkey off the back, as they might term it, get some silverware, and I think players would then relish, and memory would linger long to realise that that's something they should be doing at least once a season.
Not only that, Tom, they'll look back on that win that caused them to lift that pot and think, this is how you do it. The way we did it then is how you do it. Winning's an experience, once you get into that experience, you want to repeat it and repeat it.
Absolutely.
And repeat it.
But I mean, do you not agree that after beating Celtic after a number of games, I'm thinking, well, here we go. This is the challenge, you know. So,
well,
I mean, where was the turning point after that? And yeah, okay.
Let me break that down for you, Ali. The winter break, Rangers and Celtic shared top spot on the same points. Today, the gap is 11 points in Celtic's favour. For me, there are a number of obvious turning points. Rangers home draw again with Kilmarnock and a 0-0 at home to St Johnstone in February. Meanwhile, Celtic demonstrate the winning mentality and that inner belief, Bill, that you've touched upon. February and March were the big key periods in the season. Celtic got late winners. 86 minutes Forrest against Rangers, 96 minutes Edouard at Dundee, and 90 minutes plus at Hearts with 2 goals. In the last 10 minutes to get 2 goals to beat St Johnstone. Effectively, that turned 4 points into 12.
Didn't Brown score a late one at Kilmarnock as well, Tom?
He did indeed.
Yeah.
So you look at that Celtic winning habit, They dig deep into reserves of energy. They dig deep into the reserves of desire. And they get the job done. So in the same period, Rangers couldn't put to bed St Johnstone despite 85% possession, and Hibernian they've not beaten this season. So it's that winning mentality for me. When Rangers floundered at that stage and they were dropping points, Celtic were turning draws into wins. And if you look right now with 11 points, the gap, there's 8 in Celtic's favour. And if Rangers had beaten them, you're there.
And there's a thing, Tom, you've just highlighted this. A lot of people turn round and say when Celtic win in those time areas, oh, here we go again. The reason Celtic win there is because they won there previously and believe they can still win. They know that they've done it before, and they'll keep doing it because they don't give up, because they believe they can still do it. And that's the same with winning trophies, like we were talking about a minute ago. See, once you start doing things like that, it doesn't become a fluke, it becomes a belief.
Yep. 26 players out, incidentally, Ali, from Rangers for the season, and 19 players in. That's a huge transition in personnel. And 19 players to take on the responsibilities of being a Ranger and the expectation from 49,000 plus at every home game. I think they'll learn from this season, but they need to find that desire that Celtic epitomised in the run into the season.
I think as well, Tom, when you're talking about Edouard and that kind of situation, when he's scoring late goals, I want Dundee, you know, his display against Rangers at Celtic Park. I mean, that's what you buy. That's what you pay the money for. That's why you pay the extra money, Bill. See, sometimes some of these guys, they've just got it in them to get the goals in the 87th, 88th minute, 90th minute. And Rangers, I think, need to find that. They need to find that where they keep going. By the way, he was well scoring then, but you're in the 4th minute.
Absolutely.
You know, so
the used to always amaze me. Ali, an old pal of yours, John McVeigh, used to say to me, why do coaches no start the centre half up top first for the first 10 minutes? Get the goal that matters, then shut up shop. Instead of sending them up there for the last 10 minutes when it's 0-0. And I thought, valid.
See, that's another point then as well. When it was good to see the rise of Ajax again last night. I know we're going off there, but fantastic football, where they kind of drifted off it for a wee while, but it's coming back again. But the teams that always go through this philosophy in football and the way they're going to play with their wing backs and they end up lumping at the last 10 minutes trying to get a goal, and they probably get one, and it keeps them in the competition.
I watched the first half of Barcelona versus Manchester United, and I'm screaming at Ashley Young, shell it! And he gets caught in possession, paid the penalty. You know?
There's an old saying in football, short, long, Tom. Yeah. Short, long. And he wanted to hold on and he get caught in it. So there you go. And that's an outside right becoming a left back. That doesn't happen often.
That's very valid.
Tom, do you mind staying with us?
I'd love to stay.
Because I want to revisit the Rangers thing. We're going to speak to Jim Goodwin very shortly, and I'm sure you'd like to talk to Jim as well.
I love that Irish accent he's got too, by the way.
But we are coming back to Rangers because there's still lots more to talk about, looking back over the season and looking ahead to the next season, of course, which is not that far away when you start to look at it. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back and we'll talk more football on Rock Sport right after this.
If you enjoy the occasional flutter, Rock Sport Radio have now teamed with BetVision, our official betting and gaming partner. Enter a world of gaming that you won't believe with a fresh visual style. Find out more at rocksportradio.co.uk and see what BetVision is all about. Rock Sport Radio and BetVision, a brand new name in the world of gambling. Please gamble responsibly. Over 18s only. And remember, when the fun stops, stop. For more, visit gambleaware.co.uk.
The list of things you need to do gets longer at this time of year, whether that's for the house or in your business. So take one thing off your list right now. Your septic tank could need emptied. Let Grant Henderson Tankers empty your septic tank in the home or work, farm, factory or workshop at very competitive rates. We are septic tank specialists, experienced, safe and dedicated to environmental safety with our own licensed disposal site. Find out more at wemovesh.it or call 01698 284 987. Grant Henderson Tankers. Let the experts manage your waste.
If you've had a car accident that wasn't your fault, you don't just want any lawyer to fight your claim for compensation. You want the right lawyer, an experienced road traffic accident specialist who'll work no win, no fee. But how do you find them? At First for Lawyers, we make it easy to find the right lawyer for you. Just text compensation to 66077 and we'll call you back. At First for Lawyers, we've a 5-star rating on Trustpilot. So text compensation to 66077 now.
Looking to sell your house fast for cash? Freedom Property Buyers offer a free no-obligation offer within just 24 hours, allowing you to move on. Whether you're in financial difficulty, facing repossession, looking to sell an inherited property, emigrating, or are simply in need of a quick sale, we can help you get there in 3 easy steps. Call 0141 258 6963 or visit freedompropertybuyers.co.uk. Freedom Property Buyers. Consider it sold.
Love music. Live sport. Talking football with Bill Young and Ali Graham on Rock Sport Radio.
Very special guest in the studio tonight, Tom Miller from Rangers TV, talking to us and reviewing the season, the first season of Steven Gerrard in charge at Ibrox. We'll go back and we'll speak about that a wee bit later on as well. I spoke to him early on in the season. It's good to welcome him back, Jim Goodwin. Jim, thanks for being on with us. How are you?
No, I'm very well, thanks. I'm very well. How are you guys, all right?
We're good. I mean, I'm going to be the first to hold up my hands, Jim, and say you've given me a custard pie because I asked you and Mike at the beginning of the season about the whole part-time issue, and you both then shot me out of the water, and rightly so. It's been an incredible season for you, and I'm sure there's been times where it's looked as if it's been a bit of a struggle, and other times where you've come away thinking we should have got more out of that. And then again, the times where you've marched on to victory. Sitting at 6th in the table, realistically, is it where you thought you might be at this time in the league?
Listen, we were always confident right from pre-season when we had the first meeting with the players. You know, we stressed the fact that we were here to stay in the league. That was our main goal, and we weren't just up to make up the numbers and you know, head back down into League One. We felt, well, I certainly felt that I had recruited well in the summer, and I felt that I had put a team together that was going to be competitive. We knew that there was going to be downs along the way in terms of defeats, but we spoke about that as well, and we stressed the importance of not allowing the confidence to drop, and not allow the heads to go down. Just try and put results behind you, move on to the next one, and I think we've done that really, really well. The players have been fantastic. They're a great bunch. They're a great bunch to work with. We've got some really good experienced heads in there as well who have been there and done it before, which obviously helps with the younger ones. But look, we've got 3 games left. If you had offered me this position at the start of the season, of course I'd have snapped the hand off you. I think we have caught everybody by surprise, but I'm not overly surprised, to be honest with you. When I see the quality that we've got in the team, it doesn't surprise me that we are where we are.
Jim, one of the things that stands out for me, and I've had 2 or 3 of your players on throughout the season, is their enthusiasm. They seem all to be enjoying their football at Alloa.
Yeah, absolutely. And, like I said, they are a great group to work with. They really are. They come in on a Tuesday and a Thursday night and they give their all every night. I don't think there is one occasion where I've had to stop training and ask for a bit more and demand higher standards. They're a credit to themselves. They really are. They're extremely professional as well, although they're only part-time. We give the guys programs and that to go away with and to work hard on the Monday, Wednesday, Friday, because training on a Tuesday and a Thursday night just isn't conducive, and it's not going to keep you match fit, especially at the level that we're playing at right now. So, the players deserve all the credit for doing that, because that's the hard part. When you're away from the group and you're on your own and you've got to motivate yourself to, get up after work. You've been home from a long day or whatever, and after having your dinner, the last thing you probably feel like doing is going out for a run. But in fairness to the boys, they've done that, and everybody, all opposition managers and players have all commented on the players' fitness levels. I demand a hell of a lot from them on a Tuesday and a Thursday. There are no easy nights. We don't have a hard night on a Tuesday and then tail off on the Thursday. Both nights are extremely difficult and high-intensity sessions, and the players have bought into it. And I think you can just see that by the amount of late goals that we've scored throughout the season. I don't think there's anybody there won't be many teams out there all over the country, in every league, that scored more late goals than us. So that goes to show how fit the boys are.
Jim, Ali Graham here. How are you doing, mate?
Good, Ali. How are you doing?
Yeah,
okay?
Good. I was talking to Bill earlier on there and Tom. I was talking about the game at Falkirk. We played Falkirk. I was up at it watching it. You get beat 2-1. And then obviously the week after, Partick Thistle, 2 teams that are toiling down the bottom there. That's 2 defeats in a row.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking to myself then, and probably everybody else was, Jim, Well, that's Alloa. You can see them maybe struggling a wee bit now. But then you go and you beat Queen's South away from home, you know, and then Dunfermline. But you look at your results and then you've picked it up again. Apart from maybe Inverness up with a 3-2, then you've went in this incredible run. How do you turn, as a manager, the guys' heads round into believing that they can get the wins again after sustaining a couple of defeats?
Listen, I think it's just about trying to maintain a positive outlook and not to allow anyone to feel the pressure, you know, and I think that's something that myself and my staff work hard on with the lads, and along with, you know, and I have to give great credit to the experienced guys in the group, the likes of Andy Graham and Neil Parry, Ian Flanagan, Alan Troughton, guys like that who manage to keep the spirits up in the dressing room as well. And look, we spoke about it. We know the quality that the other teams have, and we knew that January was going to be really, really difficult for us because obviously we don't have the financial resources that the likes of Partick and Falkirk do have, and you know, they were able to go out and basically build a brand new team in January and sign some really top players. You know, you look at Partick, they've signed Scott McDonald, Australian international, played at Celtic, played at the highest level. Stephen Anderson from St Johnstone, who's played hundreds of games in the Premier League, great experience. Falkirk, on the other hand, are able to go and bring good young boys up from England and have the resources to put them up in accommodation. Things like that just aren't feasible for us to do. So the January window is only good for you if you've got money, and unfortunately, you know, we don't have those kind of capabilities. But look, I think we managed to do good business again in January. I was really concerned about losing Jake Hasty because Jake was excellent for us in the first half of the season. When I heard that Motherwell were going to take him back, it was a difficult one to take. We'd also had a doubt over Sam Roscoe. Derek McInnes had a number of injury concerns to guys at the back around about that time as well. And, you know, they're two big players for us in the opening half of the season. So losing Jake was difficult, but then we managed to go and get Jack Aitchison, Jack Hamilton. Again, they're only kids. They're not being tested at this level, but in fairness to them, they've came in, you know, they've joined the group as if they'd been in from pre-season, and the boys made them feel very welcome, and they've added something a little bit different than what we lost with Jake.
Jim, it's Tom here. Just a quick question from me, if you don't mind. You go to Partick Thistle at the weekend. Give us a flavour of your team talk.
Well, look, you know, everybody knows that we'll be underdogs again. There's absolutely no doubt about it. We've been underdogs all season, and we expect that tag, and I think we've probably used that tag to our advantage throughout the season up to now. The pressure is all on Partick. You know, there's no getting away from that. They're 5 points behind us at the moment. They're the home team. There'll be a very expectant crowd. I would imagine the Partick Thistle fans will turn up in great numbers. But my message to the boys on last night in training and tomorrow night will be the very same as what it's been in the previous weeks and months already. We go there and we play our own game. We haven't once went to any stadium and parked the bus and put 11 men behind the ball. I refuse to do that as a manager, and I think if I do suggest that to the players, then I'm taking a lot away from our team. I would rather be positive, go and take the game to Partick Thistle. If we get an early goal, then, you know, the pressure's really on them, but my team aren't built to play negatively and to sit off the game and just try and hold out for a 0-0 and take a point up the road. I think that would be giving the players the wrong message, and that would be me kind of telling them I don't believe in you, and that's not the case. I want them to go there and just express themselves again like they have done, and win, lose or draw. I know they'll give their all, and hopefully we'll get the breaks of the ball as we have done the last few weeks, and maybe things will go our way again. Who knows? Jim,
I was saying to Ali and Tom earlier on, you know, the way it's such a bloody competitive league. The fact that you got that run, those 4 games, and it lifts you the way that it has. It must be, it must be a perilous league to be in terms of, pretty much everybody can beat everybody on their day.
Listen, it's been one of the most exciting seasons that I can remember for a long time. I'm just talking from my own perspective as a player, going back all those years as well. When I think about the leagues that I have been involved in, I can't remember many as competitive as this one from top to bottom. And, I think it's been probably the most exciting league in Scotland. If we're being honest, Ross County will, I think, eventually, go and do what they've got to do, but it's been competitive from top to bottom, and I think that's been a credit to all the teams in the league. And the fact that the teams down the bottom are more than capable of beating the teams at the top, I think, has shown over the results throughout the season. So it's been brilliant, and that's why we're fighting so hard to stay in it. You know, we want to remain in this league. There's nothing better for players and for managers to, particularly at the club that we're at, you know, to travel to places like Tannadice and Firhill on Saturday. Falkirk Stadium's always a great atmosphere at that one. Dunfermline. I mean, these are all, in my opinion, these clubs all belong in the Premier League. You know, they are Premiership clubs playing in the Championship. It's as simple as that. You only need to look at the attendances that these clubs get on a weekend. So we're delighted to be a part of it. And as I said at the start, we had every intention of coming up here and giving a good account of ourselves and maintaining our Championship status again for next season. We haven't done that yet. We know that. We're not getting carried away with ourselves. The players are well aware of what we still need to do, and it's got to be the next 3 games. That fear of going down now has got to be our main driver, I think. You know, the guys know how close they are, they know how well they've done, and we just need to make sure that all the hard work we've done in the previous games isn't wasted.
But what you've done, Jim, is, you know, on the back of the 4 wins, you've actually dragged Morton, Queen of South into the equation as well now. You know, where it might have been yourselves, Falkirk and Partick Thistle a few weeks ago. There's 5 teams down there now, and you're at the top of that 5, so, you know, could you envisage dragging them into it as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Look, I mean, I think Morton and Queen of the South were probably in a similar situation to ourselves in January, where maybe, you know, finance dictated a wee bit, and they didn't have the same resources as what Partick and Falkirk have had. So, you know, full credit to Partick and Falkirk. They went and spent the money wisely. They've, you know, drastically improved the team that was there in the first half of the season. No disrespect to those guys that were there, but the teams are certainly better now, and that's what's made it more competitive. So, look, I mean, we knew how important the Queen of the South game and the Falkirk game was going to be, and the fact that we managed to, you know, we had Ross County at the beginning of those 4 games, and if we were to take anything from that game, any positive result would have been fantastic. The fact that we went and won 1-0 was even better. But then, you know, we spoke in the weeks prior to that how important that week of playing Falkirk, Morton and Queen of the South were going to be. And it's proved to be that way. Mm-hmm. You know, we've managed to get ourselves a wee bit of a gap, but at the same time, you know, people might look at it and say, well, we're in the dizzy heights of 6th place in the league. You're only a defeat away from rock bottom again, you know, almost. So we just have to keep mindful of that, and as I said, use that to our advantage to drive us over the line. And I think if we can go to Partick in the right mindset, not nervous, not under pressure, because we're not. All the pressure is on Partick. We don't need to stress about the situation. They need to come at us. They need to win the game. And hopefully we'll be able to pick them off while they do that.
Just looking at the typical surface at Recreation Park, I think it's been improved, Jim. Has that been a help to you through this campaign?
Yeah, well, it's the pitch has been that way since I came to the club nearly 3 years ago now. So it was just relayed, because I remember coming as a player with St Mirren, and it was the old Astro, and it was terrible. There was no getting away from that. It was horrendous, and fortunately the club were able to get the new surface down, and it's on a par with Falkirk. I think both are similar, from the same company. In my opinion, they're the 2 best in the country. I know there is a lot of controversy around the AstroTurf pitches. I wasn't, to be honest with you, I wasn't too keen on it prior to coming to Alloa. I did have my doubts when I spoke to Jack Ross, because I didn't really fancy playing on it every second week, but I have to say, if they're done properly and people go and spend the correct amount of money that's needed and get top stuff, then it's as good as any good grass.
Surely Rugby Park's better, the best one.
I know. But see, when you go, the argument is still open with regards to that. If you were to ask me what I'd rather play on, I would 100% say I would much rather play on a nice grass pitch. There's no getting away from that.
Yeah. Jim, have you found it a hindrance?
In the top,
if you go to sign a player, for instance, like young Jack Aitchison on loan from Celtic, when you've got in to bring a loan player from a bigger club to Alloa, has that been a consideration?
It hasn't really been a topic of conversation with any of the parent clubs, because mainly these young guys now at all the academies that they come through, the majority of these guys play their games on AstroTurf pitches anyway, but it's the more experienced ones that you need to be wary of. I have had discussions with players in the past, experienced guys that have tried to get to the club, and they just quite simply haven't fancied training on Astro 2 nights a week and then playing on it at the weekend, and due to maybe ankle injuries, knee injuries, back injuries, what have you. So I do think, as I said, if they're laid properly and you don't try and penny pinch and cut costs, and you do it to a high standard, then they can be good, and they have their benefits. Of course they do. They have their benefits to the club from a financial point of view, but it's a conversation for another night maybe, but I do believe in the top league, you should have enough money there to maintain a high quality grass pitch.
Good lad.
Jim, let's just say you've tinkered with the dimensions of the pitch this season. Has it worked the way that you hoped it would?
We have, and listen, it was a discussion that I had with the chairman and with the board, obviously once we knew we were promoted last season. And I think it has been an advantage to us. There's no doubt. Every team that has come early on in the season, they just couldn't get their head around it. They were hitting diagonal balls way out of the park, and players were running it out of the park. And look, I mean, listen, we've not broken any rules. We've done everything well within the rules. But yeah, we've used that loophole to our advantage. Our players train on it, as I say, a couple of nights a week. They're well used to it. They know the dimensions of it. And I think it has been a benefit to us. Don't get me wrong, one or two of my players wish I hadn't done it because they would prefer the bigger park. But I think at this time of the season, when you kind of get to that February, March time, as I said, we've got a number of experienced guys in the team, and I think to try and reduce the amount of running that these boys need to do at that time of the season, it can only be a benefit to us.
You mentioned Jake Hastie earlier on there and how he's back to Motherwell and how he's playing at the minute, Jim. You've got Dario Zanatta there. I've seen him in loan at a couple at Queen's Park as well as yourselves. Is he good enough to step up now? I know you don't want to lose the guy, but is he good enough now to step up into the Hearts team?
Listen, Dario has got fantastic potential, and he's been brilliant since he came to ourselves. Like any young lad, he's got his inconsistencies, and he, 1 minute they're 9 out of 10, the next minute they drop below par. But Dario, on a whole, has been a very, very successful loan for us. And I know Craig Levine and John Daly have been keeping close tabs on him. Whether he's going to be given the opportunity in pre-season remains to be seen. He's certainly one I would look at if I was Craig Levine and just chuck him in pre-season, give him a run of games and see how he handles it. I don't think he's going to be a number 9 striker. I prefer Dario coming off the left where we play him. He's very, very good in 1v1s, running at defenders, and he just needs to add a few more goals to his game. I think he's got 5 or 6 goals over the season. If he could add 10, 12 goals a season to his game, then he would be at another level. But we've been very lucky with the loans. In my time as manager, there's not really, there's maybe 1 or 2 that haven't quite worked out as maybe we or the player would have liked in terms of game time. But over the course, we've had Ross Stewart on loan from St Mirren, who's obviously Ross Kilton now, looking like going to be in a Premier League striker next year. Jake Hastie, as you touched on. Jamie McCart last year from Celtic, centre half, up playing week in, week out in Inverness. So it is a great place for young players to come. And when I first took the job, speaking to clubs like Rangers, Celtic, Motherwell and all that, they were maybe a little bit reluctant. They felt maybe at the time that their players could do a little bit better. Whereas in January and in the summer there, I'm actually getting phone calls from those clubs now asking, look, will you take the players? Because the players are coming, doing so well, and actually going back to their clubs better players. And that's the only way it's going to be successful, if we get the best out of them and then send them back to their clubs better.
Nick Campbell on the show last night said, what you've done with Alloa this season, you should be manager of the century. That was Dick's words. last night on the show, Jim. But
without swearing, Bill, we never swore when
he got close a couple of times. You know the bunnet. He got very close. In fact, I could hear a couple of at the end of it. Jim, obviously there's speculation now, as there has been previously. You and I spoke a wee while ago when you said that you had turned down the invitation for interview for St Mirren because you felt you had lots more to learn and Alloa was the best place for you to learn it. There is a lot of speculation now. A lot of people touting you for Manager of the Year, obviously, Ali Graham being one of them. But I was just wondering, just your thoughts, and I know you're not going to give much away, but all the speculation, how helpful is that coming to this run-in when you've still got a job to do? Because there's quite a bit of it around.
Yeah, listen, before I touch on that, so much time for Dick. I love him to bits, and I talk to him every now and again. He phones me out of the blue, and I'm wondering what he's phoning me for. And
most people are like that, Jim.
But listen, and I wouldn't say, I'm not close with him at all. I've only really had conversation with Dick over the last couple of years, and probably spoke to him half a dozen times on the phone. And obviously, then when we play against each other, he's just a great guy. He's a great character of Scottish football, and I think people sometimes forget what a fantastic manager he is and the record that he has, and the fact that he's been able to guide Arbroath to 2 promotions in 3 years is quite incredible. So I'm delighted for him, I really am, and for Ian as well, and I congratulate them, and hopefully ourselves, along with Arbroath, can battle it out next year in the Championship. But getting back to your previous point regarding my own situation, I've got a 12-month rolling contract with Alloa. I am absolutely delighted to be manager of Alloa, and it has been a fantastic place for me to learn, and I've made so many mistakes over the last 2.5, 3 years, but I've been allowed to make those mistakes by the chairman and the board, and I've not had anybody putting me under pressure. I've not had anybody questioning decisions that I've made, substitutions, tactics, nothing. And they've just been great people to work for. So, like I said, I think I answered you 4 or 5 months ago. I'm in absolutely no hurry whatsoever to leave Alloa, but at the same time, of course, I'm a young manager. I'm 37-year-old. I am wanting to get on in the game of management. I have every ambition of going full-time at some point, but, I'm not going to jump in at the first opportunity, and I think I showed that in the summer. It's got to be right. It's got to tick all the boxes. It's got to be a club that matches my ambition. The structure's got to be right, and all of those things. If that club comes along, whether it's this summer, whether it's next summer or the summer after, then I'm happy to sit down and talk to those people with the blessing of Mr. Mulroney. And I know, the chairman is just, as I said, I can't speak highly enough of him, and I think all the managers that have worked under him in years gone by, there's very few you would find that would say a bad word about him. So I know once the time is right, he'll give me his blessing. But up until that actually happens, I really haven't given it a second thought. My main focus right now is on keeping Alloa in the league. And if I don't do that, it's great people talking about me and Ali there, talking and tipping me for Manager of the Year. It's very, very flattering. But at the same time, it'll be a failure in my opinion if we go back down. So it'll only be a successful season if we stay in the league, and that's where my main focus needs to be.
Well, I'm taking a wee bit of the credit, Bill, because obviously I've a couple of course, I've a couple of pints with Big Neil Parry now and then, and by the way, nobody's playing the next day and like, Jim, don't worry about it. And obviously I showed Alan Trout and everything as to score a goal, when he was a young kid at Queen's Park, Jim. So I mean I've helped you along the way. So
last time Alan was on, actually, Jim, he was complaining about how narrow the park was, wasn't he?
Well, listen, he talks about, you talk about 2 players there, and obviously there's been a lot said about Andy Graham, about what a leader and what a captain he is, but, you talk about Trouts and Neil Parry. For me, Neely is in the top 3 goalkeepers in the division. I think Mark Ridges at Inverness is probably number 1, and then you've got Scott Fox at Ross County, and I think Neely is probably the 3rd best goalkeeper in the league overall. He's been immense for us with some of the saves that he's made and the amount of games he's kept it in. And again, we talk about characters. He's just a fantastic guy in the dressing room. Yeah. Alan Troughton is one who got promoted with Brechin, and then kind of got the slap in the face that he was told they didn't think he was good enough for that division, and they released him, and he went to Albion Rovers. But, having played against him when he was at Albion Rovers and
scored the barrel load, Jimmy. Scored the barrel load there.
Scored a barrel load, and I had every faith in him when we brought him to the club. He's technically one of the best players I've ever worked with, and I go back to all the full-time clubs I've been at as well. He's a fantastic player, and with an eye for a goal. And again, we get back to attitude in training, applies himself properly. You couldn't really ask for any more. So they're just two names, along with Andy Graham, that we could talk about, and I feel bad not mentioning everybody else, but they all know how important they are. Your Flanagans, Robertsons, Kevin Cawley, another one. My God, Kevin's played hundreds of games for the club. So, the list is long, and these guys deserve all the credit for what they've managed to do up to now, and it's just, I really hope for them that we manage to get over the line.
Jim, we spoke to Andy last week. Has he managed to stem that nosebleed he said he had from scoring the goal?
Yeah, well, he had a nosebleed last weekend as well because he broke his bloody nose. So there you go. Well, Paddy Connolly actually said to Lee Sharp in the office after, he says, "How's big Andy's nose?" And Sharp, he said, "It looks like a yum-yum." So I think that was the best description of it that you could give. But look, Andy is everything that you would want in a captain. Again, he's another one. And when I was doing my recruitment in the summer, and I don't want to go on too long because I know you guys are probably short of time, but when I was doing my recruitment in the summer, it was really important that I had guys that were hungry and had something to prove. And the older guys that we're talking about there, your Troutons, Andy Graham, Ian Flanagan, Neil Parrys of the world, people doubted them. And when I re-signed them, there was question marks about, well, can they handle it in the Championship? And I spoke to the guys openly about that. People are questioning you. People are wondering, are you capable of doing it? Well, I'll tell you what, these guys could actually end up in Team of the Year. They've been that good. They've proved everybody wrong. And then on the flip side of that, I'm looking to bring in young, hungry guys that don't want to be at Alloa long term, but want to use Alloa as a stepping stone to go and prove to everybody that they're more than capable of playing the Championship. So I think the recruitment side of things has been massive, and I've been very, very fortunate in the ones that I've signed, and they've, everybody, and even the guys that haven't played as much as they would have liked, they've all contributed massively.
Jim, good luck against Thistle and for the rest of the season. Thanks for coming on and talking to us again. Always a pleasure. And hopefully we'll talk to you at the end of the season.
Good luck, Jim.
Fingers crossed. All the best, guys.
Thanks, Jim.
My pleasure. Take
care.
You
go. Jim Goodwin, the Alloa manager, talking to us tonight about Alloa's season so far. Still a wee way to go yet, but I'm absolutely convinced, boys, that if I'm Thistle, I'm more scared of them going to play me at the weekend
here's the thing,
than Alloa will be or should be.
Here's the thing, Tom, and I mentioned Greenock Morton and Queenie South into it. It's important to bring them into it because they've got to play their games as well. I mean, all these teams have got to win. If they don't win, it's another game at the road and you're reaching the end of the season.
Points in the bag, isn't it?
Points in the bag, so...
all day long.
Right, I'm going to take a quick break. We're going to come back, and Mr. Miller is going to continue talking about the Rangers season and looking ahead to next season, because lots more to talk about there. If you're a Celtic fan, don't worry, we'll be doing the same thing for Celtic next week.
Not with me, though, can I just qualify?
No, but there's...
Happy to do it for you.
We'll take a break, we'll come back, we'll talk more football after this.
Scottish rugby is on the up, and Rock Sport Radio is following this resurgence by bringing you The Line Out. Every Wednesday evening from 8, Lewis Stewart has one of the best contact books in the business, which means the people who really matter in Scottish rugby give you the latest news and gossip on Scotland's most trusted rugby radio show. Get into the action with Lewis Stewart and The Line Out, Wednesdays from 8 p.m. on Rock Sport Radio. Love music, live sport.
Have you ever lost money on an investment? If a high street bank persuaded you to buy a stocks and shares ISA, unit trust or investment bond and you lost money, you could be entitled to thousands of pounds in compensation. It doesn't matter if you no longer have the investment or can't find the paperwork. You could still be owed thousands. Text GOOD to 66777 and Goodwin Barrett will start a free assessment to find out how much you could be owed. Text GOOD to 66777 and Goodwin Barrett will call you back. After an accident at work, you can feel angry, frustrated and upset. You're probably feeling in pain and worried about the impact on your family and your job. Well, it's time to experience a different feeling. At First for Lawyers, we'll help you discover what justice feels like. At First for Lawyers, we've a 5-star rating on Trustpilot. So text compensation to 66077 and let us find the right lawyer for you. No win, no fee. Text compensation to 66077 and we'll call you back.
It's easy to put things off. I'll sort it tomorrow. It'll wait. Well, turns out if you're a man with prostate disease, the sooner you spot it, the better it can often be treated. So if your dad or brother have had prostate cancer, or you're having trouble with your waterworks, do something about it. See your GP or visit prostatescotland.org.uk for more information. Prostate Scotland. Pull your finger out.
Love music. Live sport. Talking football with Bill Young and Ali Graham on Rock Sport Radio.
Okay, talking football, we're into the last run, and Tom Miller still in the studio with us from Rangers TV, reviewing Steven Gerrard's first season as manager at Rangers Football Club, and whether Rangers have made progress or whether they haven't. We've covered on that. Tom giving us more than enough evidence to suggest that Rangers have made progress, and it's been good progress. Tom, what do you want to pick up on next?
Well, I think you have to look to next season. Interestingly, that Jake Hastie, who has been linked with a move to Rangers.
Now that was on, it was off, and now it's supposedly back on potentially.
Can you actually see Rangers sign both Jake Hastie and Greg Stewart? Both are very similar, naturally left-sided, both very comfortable operating the right-hand side. Jake Hastie had a successful loan spell at Alloa, as we've just heard from the manager, Jim Goodwin. Prior to that, he was at Airdrie, also on loan. So, if he is indeed on Rangers' radar, he's not one that's going to walk into the first team immediately unless he has one of these outstanding pre-seasons that gives the manager nowhere else to go except play him. So you get Jordan Jones coming from Kilmarnock as well. But I do believe the two big signings will be a centre-back and that locksmith, for want of a better term.
Let me ask you while we're talking about that, and I'm not asking you to give away any inside information if indeed you have any, but identify the type of player who would be an example of the type of player that Rangers would be looking at within their budget, that might be available, that, that kind of thing. Who would you be looking at for centre-back, first off? Who would be a good centre-back for Rangers?
Well, I suspect Souttar fits the profile. However, guys like Souttar are 10 a penny south of the border, to be honest. In fact, Rangers go to Tynecastle at the weekend, and it was just... The last time Rangers won at Murrayfield, when Hearts weren't at home, the Saturday result there. So Rangers won their last two visits to the West End of Edinburgh, is where I'm going here ultimately. They won at Tynecastle on the previous visit. The Hearts were tenants at Murrayfield at the time. It was a Saturday fixture under Graham Murty, and the night before, Steven Gerrard actually had his young Liverpool side at Ibrox, and they won comfortably. And the lad Liam Miller, who's at Kilmarnock on loan at the moment, stuck out like a sore thumb. But when you talk about profiles and athleticism, and I saw Rangers play Liverpool, I saw them play Leeds United, I saw them play Leicester in this games programme, Best v Best, and the physicality and the growth of 17 and 18-year-olds south of the border eclipsed the Scottish players by a long way. You only had to look at it and you think, wow, he looks 24, 25. But he was actually like 18, 19. So John Souttar, 6'3", 22 years of age, played 200 games, is a rarity in Scotland. South of the border, there'll be quite a few who are playing at clubs like Shrewsbury and all these other areas. And I think something that's slipped under the radar is that Rangers this season, I don't know if elevation is the right term, but positioned Billy Kirkwood as loans manager. Now, Kirky's been about coaching at Rangers forever, was brought in the early days of Walter Smith first time round from Dundee United, and he's had a number of disciplines throughout the age groups at Rangers, and part of his coaching strategy was to develop them as people as well as players. He's now been given the role of going round and seeing how Rangers players who are away from the club at the moment are performing at their loan clubs and reporting back, making them feel part of it. I can remember, it must be 10 years ago, Rangers had a young lad from Chelsea called Dean Furman, who's now won 50 caps for South Africa, but he couldn't get into the Chelsea side. He came to Rangers, couldn't quite get into the Rangers team, was on the bench a few occasions, probably about 2007, 2008 period, and then went on loan to Bradford. And I spoke to Dean while on loan at Bradford, and he said no one from the club had come near him in like 4 or 5 months. While there, he felt really isolated, didn't feel part of the club, wanted the club to know how well he'd been doing, but the only way they would do it was if somebody actually read a newspaper or went online or went on the Bradford website or whatever to determine just how well this young man was actually delivering while a Rangers employee, while south of the border at another club. So it's taken a long while to address that issue, but I think it's a visionary appointment, because not only will they come back with the reports that are necessary on current employees, he'll actually be able to pick up the odd wee nugget that he sees in games that wouldn't normally be covered, pass it on to the recruitment team, and they can then go and follow it up. So I would expect a 22 age group, if we're profiling the defender, that kind of age group, 6 foot plenty, and perhaps is more of a ball winner, because when Golson gets on it, he can shell these big diagonals that Jim Goodwin alluded to a couple of minutes ago. But I think they need someone to complement that, who wins the ball first and foremost. So I see that as being one priority. Where do you go and get, you know, the equivalent of a real Messi type player with a limited budget that you've got? And that's when Mark Allen has to be very cute. If there's a pot of gold there, how he divides that up, including bringing players in on loan. You've got other players that would crawl over broken glass to come and play at Rangers. I can think of Charlie Adam, for instance, who's going to be released by Stoke in the summer. Could Charlie have a role to play back at Rangers? Potentially. He certainly could play the quarterback role. Can Rangers live with that luxury, perhaps, when, you know, they've got to be a wee bit more inventive in the engine room? They've already unearthed a diamond for me in Glenn Kamara at 50,000 quid.
Yeah,
and
I
you
agree
can
with
see
that
his CV at Arsenal has really stood him in good stead when he's come north of the border. I think Scott Arfield would benefit as well from not being expected to be the second striker, although you have to wonder, Jermaine Defoe has all the qualities to deliver up here, but he's not at game time either. So, depending on the shape Steven Gerrard chooses to deploy, if he goes a 4-2-3-1 and Morelos is the man, it'll be Morelos, and Defoe will continue to cool his heels on the bench unless he can play in the whole of the three behind. I'm not sure that's the case, and I think Ryan Kent might just be the priority, and he could also be identified as the potential number 10, playing off the front, as Alex touched on, particularly in the knowledge you've already got Jordan Jones, who is the natural flyer down that left flank, with paint in his boots, who'll look to whip balls in, and it's the second ball that always does the damage, isn't it?
Don't forget as well, Tom, when you look at you're talking about Billy Kirkwood and the scouting, whatever, going to watch players that are on loan. I mean, Greg Docherty's not been off the telly for the last wee while. Where does he come back into it again? Because Shrewsbury Town, you know what it's like on a Sunday morning. You get up and you watch all the leagues and you see all the goals.
I draw the line to the Australian League, Ali. I know you like the Australian League. No,
I just watch it for the VAR. The VAR doing a T, but and I can get a punt on it an odd time. But no, going back to Greg, right. You see him quite a lot, and you see some of these guys doing there. So there is that coverage
and he's
now
determined
of the lower leagues. Yeah,
to make it at Rangers. So there is perhaps typical midfield players tend to sign midfield players, and if you look through the leagues, that's pretty much the case. They'll look to get a player in their own image, and Steven Gerrard has an embarrassment of riches in that particular area, but what he does need is that level of consistency. I think Stephen Davis, like I've touched on earlier, has been over the course and jumps before in Rangers colours, and I think it's not a financial decision that would influence whether he's a Rangers player next season or not, and I think we're starting to see the best of Stephen Davis at the wrong time. It's taken him that couple of months since the January window to get up to pace, but he's showing all his qualities just now, but that's why Steven Gerrard and Gary McAllister are getting the big bucks. They have big decisions to make in this window. They've only had effectively 2 windows in their time at the club, and that's, folly to judge signings in only 2 windows. He's taking a punt on Borna Barisic, who's a very accomplished and talented footballer, technically gifted. He maybe just needs to grow a pair of cojones when the chips are down, and it gets a wee bit physical in the Scottish game. Eras Grezda came, lad speaks 7 languages incidentally, so he's a clever boy. He's very fleet-footed, and he knows where the goals are as well. He had a surgery on an ankle injury in the summer, and I don't think he's ever got to the pace and the expectation because he didn't have the benefit of a good pre-season behind him. So all eyes will be on Gresda come the summer to see that if he stays injury free, he could be a solution already on the books. But the coaching staff will be working tirelessly just now. And when I spoke to Steven Gerrard and Mark Allen just a couple of weeks ago together, that day they'd had 4 hours poring over potentials.
Young Middleton scored a couple of goals for the young team the other week. So, I mean, he was in and out at the start of the season, wasn't he? Is there any chance of him getting back?
Yeah, he's come off the bench 18 times.
He could maybe go and loan to somebody.
We just turned 19 on New Year's Day, 18 off the bench, punching above his weight potentially. Both goals against Celtic reserves on Monday. He scored 8 goals in his last 5 games for the unders, effectively. What is his best position? He is equally comfortable playing wide or straight through the middle as a striker.
Right.
Yeah, he's a real talent. He's a flying machine. And I can tell you that Peter Lovenkrands, as the reserve team coach, spent many an hour with him in the afternoons. The boy wants to learn. And he's going to the coaching staff and saying, I'll stay behind, can you give me an hour? And they get the bag of balls out and they work on crossing and finishing constantly. So that's a delight to see. But there are a number of young talents at Hummel Training Centre, and it'd be wrong for me to perhaps focus on only one. But as a young boy who's now representing Northern Ireland at under 21 level, he's from Canada, I think he's just 18, Cammy Palmer, terrific. He reminds me like a young Bobby Russell. He was captain of the reserve side that beat Celtic 2-0 on Monday, and both Celtic and Rangers going head to head for the league title. I think it's going to go down to the wire with a game to be played. Cammy Palmer, terrific. Josh McPake at 17's already been in and around the first team, plays off the front. So the work that's going on behind the scenes, and I think the decision by Craig Mulholland and his team to withdraw from the reserve league as they did 2 seasons ago and go into a programme of best v best, albeit they took a couple of goings over along the way, I think they're seeing the benefit of it now.
Okay. Tom, you're talking about young talents. We can't not talk about him because he's been in the headlines for all the right reasons and all the wrong reasons, which is Alfredo Morelos, of course. There must be a degree of frustration within the management team that you've got this kid that knows where the goal is, can score for fun. The thing that impresses me most about Morelos is the angles he can fire balls into the net from. But, as you know, before the season even kicked off this season, I identified I had concerns about his, let's just say, excitability. Yeah. And sadly, I've been proved right on more occasions than I would like. What's the general thinking with yourself in terms of, will Morelos make a move in the summer? Do you think? I know Steven Gerrard's desperate to hang on to him, but money talks, and if they get a decent offer, and while you're telling me whether you think he may move, what do you think would be a decent offer in Rangers' mind? Well, there's no doubt in my mind, Bill, that the interest from China a year past January was absolutely assured, and you were talking 10-11 million euros at that time. He's kicked on again from then, 29 goals for the season, but his disciplinary record has been hugely frustrating for the fans, for his teammates, and of course management and coaching staff. And I think the last red card at Celtic Park, which has accumulated a 4-game ban, was the straw that broke the camel's back for Steven Gerrard, who had backed him continually, despite all the misdemeanours. And I think now he's at a stage that he realises it's a make-or-break stage now for Alfredo Morelos. A nicer lad you couldn't meet. He still has very limited English, but he came from a very, very poor upbringing in Colombia. This is a lad who is next to nothing. And I think when you look at the way he smiles and enjoys his goals, you know this is a guy who has something about him that will go to the very top. Sadly, he's got this flaw. The mechanism of self-destruct is there, that if anyone comes near him with any form of threat, whether it's verbal or physical, he reacts. He immediately lashes out. Rangers have to find a way to eradicate that from his game, for 2 reasons. One, for the benefit of the football club to mount an ongoing challenge to lift silverware. And the second is if they do have to sell him, and money talks, Bill, and if that's how they recycle the squad by bringing in what I would think would have to be around £12 million for his services, where Rangers looking to sell, but they're not, hence the extended contract. But if the right offer was there isn't a player in Scotland that's not for sale when the deal is right.
Would you agree, Tom, that when you watch Morelos and you've seen him every game, I've only seen him a few games, he grows frustrated, Bill. His frustration comes in. I'll take the Celtic Rangers game, for instance, the last one, where I look at the centre forwards and I watched them very closely, and I looked at Odsonne Edouard, who I thought showed how to play centre forward that day. But Morelos early on in the game wasn't involved in the game, and you see him trying to get involved, and he grows more and more frustrated until the incident. And
he was coming shorter to get involved instead of staying between the sticks. I would agree with that wholeheartely.
And have you seen that quite a lot of times?
Regularly.
He's grew more frustrated.
At times he wants to do it all. He wants on the ball. It is a flaw. And I'm sure it's something that they're working on.
The reason I say that is because see in the halfway line, Bill, when he gets the ball, his touch isn't great, but see when he's in the last third, see when he can roll and feel a defender, that's where he gets his goals from. That's where you have to involve him in the game. Not so much in the halfway line when the build-up play. But he seems to grow frustrated, but he still doesn't get the ball in that area.
You know, you look back to that last Old Firm game, and you probably couldn't have got a bet on at least a yellow card for him during the 90 minutes. Yeah. But I immediately thought back to Mark Hateley. Mark Hateley come back to win 9 in a row at Celtic Park effectively and get red carded in his first game back after QPR, and he was at the mature end of his career. So clearly that environment, and I don't just mean the Celtic Park environment, the pressures of that particular fixture, going for titles, going for prizes, can get under your skin, whatever's going on. And this young man at 22 needs to learn that part of the game. He came from HJK Helsinki without a blemish on his disciplinary record.
Not a thing.
And I think part of it is...
If you've ever been there, I've played against him in a final when we won it with Tampere United. We beat them in the final, and if you've ever been there, you wouldn't have a blemish either, to be quite honest with
Was it Harry Campman's his team at the time? Were you at Motherwell when Harry Campman was the manager?
No, I wasn't actually, Tom. No, I just left.
You know, just going back to your point, because I've been a bit critical about Morelos' touch, but you know what I've noticed? You see when he's under pressure, his touch is good. It's when he's got time.
Yeah, to think about it too often.
Yeah, when he's got time is when his touches it's
I think you know the good centre forward Dalglish felt his touch was fantastic, but when you feel a defender, you know you're going to get a goal, you're going to create something, Tom, and that's when he's most dangerous.
You know, I think from Scottish football perspective, we all have a responsibility, to make this young man living so far away from home welcome to our land, enjoy the qualities he brings to our game, and hope, we all should hope, he harnesses this vicious self-destruct streak and continues to have a good career, and we can all enjoy watching him deliver, whichever team you support, because when he's in full flow, he's something to behold.
Yeah. Do you think he's grown frustrated in the big games and maybe against Celtic because he's not scored against them? Do you think that's in the back of his mind?
I think in the back of his mind here, Alan, it's only my own personal observation. Yeah. I think he now has believed his own press to a degree. Right. He thinks he's the Messiah, for want of a better term. He thinks he is Billy Big Shot to a degree, doesn't like the negativity of the pressures that go with putting yourself up there to be shot down, and he has to learn to handle that.
And do you think then, whatever happens to him this season, if he moves on, if somebody comes in, team for England, do you think he's ready for the English League, whatever, the Premiership, or maybe a team like Fulham or something like that?
Suggestions that people won't touch him because of his disciplinary record are miles off the mark. I give you Luis Suarez. You know, the right manager, every manager will tell you they can harness what he's got. They'll get the best out of him, is their belief. And whether that's Jim Goodwin signing Andy Graham as a big centre-half from Dumbarton and taking a punt on him, that people tell him he's finished. Alan Troughton being told he wasn't good enough for the Championship by Brechin. Jim Goodwin takes a punt on him, and the guy delivers. And I think it's very similar there.
And that's the reason why I asked that, because when you moved into England, obviously, and you moved to a bigger club, when you're not the bigger fish in the pond there.
Yeah.
You're not the main man. There's maybe another 8 or 9.
If you watch Sunderland, you know, Jack is a great young manager in the making as well, and a friend for the show for you, Bill. You know, Jack Ross down at Sunderland there. He's got Aidan McGeady playing out his skin as the creator-in-chief in his team, and he's just doing it and enjoying his football without the distractions and the pressures, perhaps, of living in the goldfish bowl as the West of Scotland.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. And from my point of view, I get frustrated for Morelos because you can see the talent. There's one thing that you cannot teach a striker, and that's how to find space in the right areas. It's a natural ability that they've got. You know that better than most. And the boy can find space from anywhere. He just always seems to know where to be at the right time.
Yeah.
And for me, it's sad. I mean, I take no pleasure at all in being right about the observation I made early on in the season.
Can I just say while we're at it then, I think there's been an incredible lack of comment that Aberdeen lost their manager, their assistant manager, and 2 players to red cards on Sunday, and yet there's been a very, very limited amount of negativity in the media about it. I think there's, I'm not going to say there's an agenda against Rangers, but I think they enjoy the opportunity of having a pop at a club on the way up, while Aberdeen effectively got off scot-free.
Yeah, well, Bill hasn't actually asked me about the semi-final, but you know my thoughts on it. You know, and I'm friends with.
Well, no, I discussed it at length last night,
and I just don't see. I don't see the visions of an Aberdeen supporter. I get shot down in flames with my mates on Sunday watching the semi-final, asking where they're going. Well, they can only finish second, but they're not going to finish second anymore. They've won 1 trophy under Derek McInnes.
They might not finish. They might not finish third or fourth.
Tom highlighted that earlier on. So I would like to know, as an Aberdeen fan, if I was an Aberdeen fan, but where are we going into this new stadium? Are we going to stick with it?
I made the point.
It's kick and rush football, Tom.
Hearts the same. Launch it to Ekpiezu, who's got 2 Premiership goals for the season. Yeah, the guy's a bulldozer, there's no doubt about that, and he's interesting on the eye, for want of a better term, and you get good players round about and might profit. Yeah. But surely, there's more to the Scottish game than that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I just don't know what the Aberdeen's fans' thoughts are. We had one guy on a few weeks ago.
I said last night, and I'm going to say it all over again, for me, from the first time that the ball was kicked, Aberdeen weren't interested in playing football. They were late arriving for tackles. The first ball that was punted up to Cosgrove, he just made a back for Ayer to go over the top.
There's how not to play as a main striker. Just can do all the time.
And that's what he did. And then after that, it was backing in. And I just thought, this is appalling.
But I will say,
and it was inevitable that somebody was going to get the marching orders.
Dominic Ball actually fell foul, if you like, no better word than that, where there was a number. Well, there's a number of fouls in his area, and he just copped the first yellow card.
Yeah, he did.
But see, when you see, he had to blame. He was hit, right? But see, when you see the sending off, the ball's over Christie's head. He hasn't left the ground yet, and Christie's headed the ball.
That's what I said last night.
He could have turned his body.
Yeah. I said that last night. I thought he was a month and a half late.
Absolutely.
And there was the opportunity not to pull out of it, but to minimise the damage. Yeah. The fact that you actually saw the pronouncement of his head going into Christie's face, I thought, where did he ever imagine he was in time to get there?
He's been deployed by Derek McInnes and Tony Dock as the spoiler. He's never a midfield player in a month of Sundays, but he's been asked to go in there and put fires out when Celtic have possession. Yeah. And I think they just taking the bolt out his neck, just before kick-off.
Usually backfired, Tom.
And hugely so. But to lose both your manager and your assistant manager for indiscipline in the National Stadium when a team where expectation remains high, I think the way they've got off with this one at the moment, the deathly silence from the media, I think is frighteningly. They should be much more critical.
Not from this chap.
I understand that,
friend.
Yep.
Not from this chap. We discussed it last night, and I made my feelings very clear about it. Very clear indeed. Let's get back to Rangers though, and look ahead further to next season, Tom. Obviously, we've discussed that silverware is something that Rangers want, they need. Next year it gets closer to that 10 in a row potentially, which breaks the Rangers fans' hearts and brings them out in hives. How much of a challenge or improvement do you think or would expect to see next season with Steven Gerrard maybe having this year's experience, maybe having players at an earlier stage, having full control over the pre-season, still possibility though of the same as this season in terms of European commitment. So I was just wondering what you thought the expectation level realistically should be from Rangers fans and your own expectation level.
In my belief, Rangers have made a stride forward to close the gap on Celtic. And while Rangers may have taken 5 yards advance, Celtic have also advanced, for me, by 2 yards. So while the gap might be fractionally narrowed, the bar is being raised. Celtic won the title last season with 82 points. If they win all their games to the end of this season, they get 92. So they've also got the benefit of the Champions League income that they enjoyed, albeit the campaign didn't go as long as they would have liked. Financially, they're on a much stronger footing than Rangers are today, with a 60,000 capacity, although it's not always filled to capacity. They also have a very strong income. They've got a much better retail deal. Rangers still floundering to put together a retail deal because of the hereditary from previous. So income streams for Celtic are advancing on Rangers. So Rangers have to find other mechanisms to close that gap. And while, you can allude to 10 in a row perhaps being the holy grail for Celtic fans, Steven Gerrard will only think of one. Mm-hmm. The one season that he's been in the hot seat. He won't look for what's going on prior to that. And incidentally, in 1986, Graham Souness became the 8th man to manage Rangers in a period of 87 years. The 8th man to manage Rangers. Since Graham Souness, Smith, Advocat, McLeish, Le Guen, McCoist was unlucky number 13. Warburton, short-term Stuart McCall. Caixinha, short-term Murty. Steven Gerrard. 8 in 87 years, Steven Gerrard has become number 8 after Graham Souness with a full status in 32 years. We've had 3 managers in 4 years at Rangers. Stability, the name of the game. Manchester United came within a whisker of sacking Sir Alex Ferguson before he was a knight of the realm down south of the border. Had they not beaten Crystal Palace in the Cup replay, and look at the rewards they got. Someone had to make a judgment. We can't keep chopping and changing. For me, Steven Gerrard is the right guy. 3 managers in 4 years. We now have the right guy. Caixinha came. It was an experiment. Didn't work. Warburton, a lot of people saying, had he stayed and been given perhaps the opportunity to build youngsters through the game. But success is expected immediately in both Rangers and Celtic. You don't get time. And, Alan McCoist took huge criticism for not playing enough kids from, Division 3, Division 2 coming through the leagues. Where are these kids now? Mm-hmm. There's very few of them actually plying their trade at the top of the game, which tells you they weren't good enough. They have to be exceptional to make a career at both Rangers and Celtic. However, you go through the rest of the leagues, there's loads of players who, at one time or another, started their careers at the Old Firm. So I think Steven Gerrard's the right guy. I think he'll dismiss what's gone before for that one reason. That, as I say, 3 managers in 4 years. He'll look to recruit. He wants to be the Liverpool manager. We would be kidding ourselves big time if we believed that Steven Gerrard was here at Rangers for the rest of his career. He wants to replace Jurgen Klopp.
I told you what the guy said, which I thought was a great thing. He said it's the best bit of business Liverpool have done in years, putting Steven Gerrard out on loan to Rangers.
And the only way he gets a Liverpool gig is delivering at Ibrox.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. At what level of success, whether it be 2 cups, the league, this Liverpool, or a bigger fish come calling?
I think he has to win a league first, Ali. Yeah. And I know Liverpool themselves are out of that habit of winning league titles. Mm-hmm. But I think, Steven Gerrard, a Scottish Cup really would only short-term pacify. League Cup wouldn't pacify in the slightest. The one Rangers want is the 55th title, and then ensuring that all the foundations that's been laid, including the bricks and mortar at the training ground in Ibrox, the dilapidations that Rangers inherited, in the days of the Easdales, etc., where there was no investment in the club by way of facility and resource, has another major, demand on cash resource that the club have and time. But, you walk around Ibrox now, it's a different facility than it was 3 or 4 years ago. Meanwhile, at the training ground, exactly the same. So, all the blocks are being put in place to get Rangers back to be the dominant force that Dave King is. He's not saying that for public acclaim. He's making a statement that he wants the employees at that football club to deliver against.
I was going to ask as well then, does it come down to then what you were talking about earlier with Mark Allen, who out the big 2 are going to sign, because it's going to happen, the best loan players again for next season?
Well, I think we saw Celtic sign Timothy Weah. who's a flying machine. Yeah. We had a wee debate with Jerry Collins the other night here. He was talking about you should only be allowed to sign players if you can actually afford them. Well, a lot of absolute bunkum. I mean, it just doesn't happen in reality. And you can get loan players with no real pedigree who actually just fit the system. And that's where the manager earns his corn. As I say, the report card on Steven Gerrard, for me right now, would read around 7 out of 10. And I think he himself would suggest that might be slightly ambitious. Next year, that has to be a 9.
Okay. Tom, always good to have you in, and always great to talk to you about Rangers. As I say, next week, if you're a Celtic fan, we'll be discussing Celtic season in more depth.
I just looked at my watch and I saw it's 8 o'clock. I can't believe that.
It soon goes, my friend. It soon goes.
Hugely enjoyable.
Yeah. How many times do we sit here and think,
amazing,
it's away? But it does, and I know that everybody's enjoyed it because the old Twitter feed's been going absolutely barking mad, and they'll all be saying the same thing. Mr. Shut Up, for example, who's in America, says, today's show on fire, good stuff like this guy. So there you are, Mr. Shut Up.
That was me he was talking about.
I can understand that.
Are you laughing at?
I laugh every time you say things like that, you know that.
Cheers.
Tom, always a pleasure. Thanks you for giving up your time tonight. Mr. Graham, we will see you next week as well.
Thank you.
I'll be back tomorrow with Davy McKinnon. We'll talk to Kathy Jameson about the restriction on numbers of Rangers fans being allowed at the next Rangers Killie game. That's all to come tomorrow from 6 o'clock. Don't forget, the podcast will be up and running later on, and you can also rewatch the video feed. That's available on YouTube, on Twitter and on Facebook. Until tomorrow, have a good evening. Stay with us because it's rugby next, and they don't come much better than Lewis Stewart with the Line Out here on Rock Sport Radio. Thanks again for your company. As I say, Line Out is next.
Love music, live sport. Talking football with Bill Young and Ali Graham on Rock Sport Radio.